You're watching A News. We continue with breaking news at this hour. Despite Azerbaijan's repeated assurances that its territory would not be used for military operations against Iran, tensions have sharply escalated. On Thursday, drone attacks were launched against Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic from the territory of Iran. According to official information, one drone struck the terminal building of Nakhchivan International Airport, while another landed near a school building in the village of Shakarabad. The attack caused damage to the airport facility and injured 2 civilians. Azerbaijan strongly condemned the drone strikes, describing them as a violation of international law and its territorial integrity. Officials stated that the attack contributes to rising tensions in the region. Baku has called on Iran to urgently clarify the incident, provide an explanation and take immediate measures to prevent such actions from recurring. An Iranian drone struck the airport building in Nakhchivan, raising serious concerns about regional security and the future of Azerbaijan-Iran relations. To discuss the implications of this incident, I'm joined by Orkan Amashov, Deputy Editor-in-Chief at A News. So Orkan, what do we know so far about the drone damage in Nakhchivan and also the damage at school and its immediate damage to facilities there?
Yeah, Bakhtiar, this is an evolving situation. We are receiving information at this precise moment in time. What we know is that, according to what you said earlier, is very clear. My information, which is yet to be, of course, confirmed, the 3 drones were involved in this attack, and we know that one of them hit the terminal of the Nakhchivan Airport, and the other one was apparently aiming at a school, which creates a completely new reality. Azerbaijan, as you said, this is Azerbaijan's official position, has been very clear that the territory of this country will not be used against any country, any third party, and against Iran. But this is a very worrying moment. Just earlier, a few minutes ago, before this breaking, I interviewed Deputy Foreign Minister of Islamic Republic of Iran, Mr. Kazim Garibabadi. He claimed that he had not been informed about it, he wasn't aware of what happened, and we know that Iran's ambassador to Azerbaijan was summoned to the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry to provide an explanation. This is a very worrying situation because there is no military target, there is no legitimate military target as long as the territory of this country is concerned for Iran. Azerbaijan is not in between Israel and the Islamic Republic. Azerbaijan is not a Gulf region. There is no US military base here, and this is very worrying. He has not provided me with any information, and he said that he is not informed about it. I fully understand it's new, but I expect that he knows more than we're supposed to know. After all, he's Deputy Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. But let's hear official confirmation. It could also be the case that they have to come up with a scenario, with a decision, with a kind of an explanation, and that needs to be produced officially at some point later. Could it be collateral damage? Doesn't look like that. I'm not a military expert. We have to speak to a military expert, but it looks like a drone attack. There are those amongst the analysts would say that this could be deemed, it's not my point of view, it's not official point of view, but there are those say that this could be an act of warning against Azerbaijan, that if you decide to be involved in this conflict, we will retaliate. But this is really has got 2 layers to its substance. First of all, there's been very clear assurance that this territory will not be used against Iran. Number 2, this is creating completely different set of circumstances. I mean, I even put the question regarding NATO air defense systems intercepting Iranian missiles, which has been confirmed by all sides, including Turkish side. He said that, no, we were not targeting Turkey. The question here is not about what you're targeting. The question is that why those missiles entered the sovereign territory of another country. It's against international law. Why on earth in the Gulf region? If there are US military assets, indeed they are, they could be deemed as targets, legitimate targets from the Iranian perspective. What's about the central residential district of Dubai? Why on earth measures have not been taken to ensure that debris is not falling on those residential buildings? There are many questions. Iran is criticizing US and Israel on the basis that Iranian views that they are not acting in line with international law, in line with international humanitarian law. I mean, this particular incident, of course, we have to hear official account of what happened. Nakhchivan Airport is not a military target for anybody, including Islamic Republic of Iran. Therefore, there are many questions to be asked, but let's wait for official confirmation. And let's also reiterate the point that we are in the realm of conjecture as things stand now.
Orkan, yesterday, Iranian missile was struck down near Turkey's territory. What was the official position of Iran?
Well, Iran is saying that they have no intention to target Turkish territory. It must have been probably a mistake. They deny. I mean, when I put this question to Deputy Foreign Minister Mr. Garibabadi, he said that it is not our account, it's NATO's account, and they have never aimed at Turkey. I mean, there are two really explanations that could emanate from this point of view. One is that they are incredibly incompetent. They don't know what to target. Turkey has been against this major action, joint Israeli-US action against Iran. Turkey is very much worried about the Islamic Republic of Iran's future, because Turkey does not want to see that sort of a massive shift in the global landscape in this region for its own geopolitical reasons. Countries in this region, Azerbaijan, Armenia and Georgia, they're all concerned. They don't want instability down in the southern borders. But the reality here is that either they're incompetent, or they are deliberately targeting friendly countries in order to widen the scope of their operations and create a degree of advantage for them. To what extent that's a rational point of view doesn't look very rational to me. And number three would be that they made a mistake, but that goes along with the number one option. I mean, if you are mistakenly targeting Nakhchivan Airport, however your intentions may be, good, noble may be, you're incompetent, because that's not a target. Either you did it deliberately, which is one of the possibilities. Either you are incompetent, which gives rise to a number of questions. If they are incompetent in terms of choosing their targets, what will happen? Will they target injured base in Turkey? Will they target some other territories across the Middle East, which are actually not involved? And what is their intention? I mean, there are a number of questions. We fully understand it's a situation, extremely difficult situation. Islamic Republic of Iran probably fighting existential battle against its enemies. This is not a matter for, this is not something that Azerbaijan or any other country be involved in. It's up to US, Israel and Iran, but it's vital to make sure this region remains insulated. It's absolutely vital. All the measures have been taken to make sure this region is insulated, but it looks like that more is to be done.
Orkan, yesterday also Iran warned and threatened Israel that if Israel hits its embassy buildings in Beirut and in several other regions, Iran will retaliate by hitting embassies even in neighboring countries.
Yeah. I mean, hitting embassies is not the right course of action under international law. This is completely against the common sense, reason. If you do that, you will prompt a retaliatory measure and the situation will be completely out of control. Regarding Israeli and Iranian conflict and wider conflict with United States on one side and United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other, there are questions to all the parties in terms of the conduct of war and so forth. We also know that, and Deputy Foreign Minister made it very clear, in an US-Israeli attack, the girls' school was hit and it caused a massive casualties there, which is a tragedy. So basically the questions to all sides to act in line with international law, but sadly there is no massive deterrence which would have actually halted the operations or would have made the parties think twice before doing what they are doing. Regarding the Iranian intentions, I think after the killing of the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and after the killing of many commanders of IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran is bound to be seen strong, resilient, with grit and determination. This creates a new reality in which they could do things out of the ordinary. If before the 12-day war they were targeting US assets in the Middle East, now they went beyond the accepted norms. I mean, although Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister denied that they were targeting any civilian infrastructure in the Gulf region, but the images coming from Dubai clearly showing that whatever their original intention might have been, the damage has been done to those areas. So there's a question of responsibility. But of course, bearing in mind Iran is fighting an existential battle against its enemies. Some of the things which were unthinkable a few months ago could well be within the realm of thinkable, and this is really very worrying, Bakhtiar.
Okay, if the war extends for a month or two, what are the global implications economically and politically?
Well, of course, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz will create massive disruption for supply chains. The prices of oil will go up, and so forth. This is one economic aspect, but I think that the world economy is in a position to absorb the shock. Of course, experts specifically specializing in this area would be in a better position to respond to this question. But as long as the wider geopolitical landscape is concerned, President Donald Trump said a number of important things that we need to reflect upon. First, the war will continue for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
That effectively means that spillover effect will go beyond the ordinary accepted kaleidoscope, and the kaleidoscope is gurgling there. Number two factor we have to bear in mind that what is the intention of joint US-Israeli strikes? Do they aim for massive change in Iran leading to the collapse of the current system? Or they will be happy to extract concessions from Iran, have a deal with them, and let them survive and to a certain extent thrive under certain circumstances? We don't know the answer. There's no contingency plan proposed or contemplated, publicly contemplated by the United States. We don't know what they're planning. I think there are differences between Israel and United States. Probably Israel would be more inclined towards a radical development, sort of collapse of the system there. As long as Donald Trump thinking is concerned, it's more about concessions. But the reality is that the cumulative impact of all of these strikes are aiming at debilitating the military prowess of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have openly, President Trump talked about the destruction of naval forces, destruction of the complete ballistic infrastructure, without giving them opportunity to recreate what they are losing, what they have lost already, and of course put an end to their nuclear ambitions. Under the circumstances, will there be anybody from the current system alive to govern Iran? What is the intention behind US and Israeli strikes? And eventually, what will become of the Supreme Leader's son, the Mujtaba Khamenei? And will he be accepted by US and Israel? Will he be allowed to govern the country? We don't know. We don't have an answer to those questions, of course.
As I've received any information, we are joined by political analyst Fuad Kerimli. Fuad Kerimli, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Fuad, given Azerbaijan's stated neutrality and assurances to Tehran, how surprising is this attack from Iran?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest factors affecting everyone right now. It comes as a big shock to the public, at least, and a lot of people are trying to make sense of why the airport was hit. There was another landed near a school in Nakhchivan as well. Everyone is wondering why this is taking place. So, especially taking into consideration Azerbaijan's stance on the conflict, that there should be de-escalation, in addition to the sincere diplomatic gesture by our president, that just yesterday he visited the embassy, the Iranian embassy in Baku, to pay condolences to the ambassador, and then just a few days later there's a drone attack from Iran. So it really doesn't make too much sense.
So Fuad, how could this incident affect the already delicate relationship between Baku and Tehran?
Well, I think right now it's becoming even more strained. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they demand an explanation in the shortest time frame from Iran as to what happened. So I think there was already tension all the time, although the connections tried to be kept at a very good level. But we saw that there was sometimes hostility in the rhetoric coming out of Iran. There was always some sort of animosity that was present. And now it's manifesting itself in this kind of drone attack, which really is insensitive and doesn't really take into consideration international law, respect of sovereignty, state values.
Fuad, what is your... Of course, we are in the process of receiving information. Official confirmation should follow. But we know that Iran's ambassador was summoned up to the foreign minister to explain what happened. What is your interpretation? I mean, it looks like either it's incompetence, because there's no military target inside Azerbaijan for Iran. If you're targeting Azerbaijani infrastructure, Nakhchivan Airport, in a drone strike, either you are absolutely and unquestionably incompetent, or you have vile intentions. You want to warn this country. You want to say that, well, if you involve, which Azerbaijan has absolutely no intention to involve, you will be the recipient of our attack. What is your interpretation? Is there a third interpretation? Maybe there is a third one. Let's not sort of circumscribe ourselves to these two accounts. What is your take on this?
I agree, actually, to an extent, in the sense that this is a completely irrational move. So when we look at the reasoning behind why would Iran do this? When we look at the government structure, right, a lot of people thought that decapitating the regime would render it ineffective. But we see that although, yes, the supreme leader had central command, the government, it really does break up into little pieces that can have autonomous decision-making procedures. And whereas we can see that, a government would move in tandem, at least the highest level officials, like you mentioned previously, the deputy foreign minister would know of any foreign attacks. In this case, we can see a lot of irrational moves. So there was a missile attempt that was sent to Turkey just a few days ago, and Iran came out and denied this. So where did this missile emerge from? Where else is there an active region that's taking place? So I think it is an extreme sense of irrational behavior. In terms of Iran, there is, you can call it like an orderly chaos. So there is chaos going on. They're bombing residential areas all across the Middle East. They're targeting military, but as well as residential areas.
But how unpredictable is the Islamic Republic of Iran? Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, when I interviewed him literally a few minutes ago, told me that he had not received any information regarding this attack on Nakhchivan, which could well be true. It's not for me to say whether it's true or not, but that's an official sort of position for the time being. When Abbas Araghchi was informed about attack on Oman, he said that he wasn't informed. I mean, these civilians, foreign minister, deputy foreign minister, in a certain extent perhaps even president himself, when they are being put several questions about what's happening, they say, we don't know. I mean, who is governing this country? Is it that interim council comprised of three characters, President Pezeshkian, Chief of Justice, and Ayatollah Arafi, or is it actually collection of IRGC commanders? What is your interpretation? Because one does not know who to speak to in order to understand what has happened.
Yeah, I think look at the government structure. Of course, the IRGC has more dominance, more prevalence in terms of military capability. There are other groups that have that capacity, but I think IRGC usually has the final say. And I think, okay, you can decapitate the leadership, but this is a country that's been around for decades. So they have real structured bureaucracy that is outliving, so it's still functioning, right? So they are still carrying out attacks. So someone is giving the orders. But I don't think these are the people that we see every day on television. These are just, the ones that are doing the day-to-day operations. But when it comes to these strategic matters, I don't think it's strategic. It's completely irrational, just like you said, borderline absurd that you would involve a country that's not actively involved in the conflict, doesn't even have any U.S. So you have no justification for bombing or attempting to bomb.
Fuad, what are the broader regional implications of this strike, especially for stability in the South Caucasus?
I think maybe when we look at it through that, if we try to give it a logical idea of why this could happen, we saw that in the past few days there were more than 1,000 people that escaped through Iran with our Astara border, so through the southern part of Azerbaijan. So maybe this is a message from Iran saying that you nowhere is safe as long as we don't want it to be. But obviously, this is going to have a severe effect on the relation between Azerbaijan and Iran, at least in the short term. If Iran comes out and says that what happened, how long can you deny this? There's a drone attack that's coming from the south, so where else is it going to come from? I think in terms of regional stability, one of their aim could be to pull Azerbaijan somehow into the conflict, but that would not be rational in a sense. Like, what would Iran gain out of this? So the only thing that it can have on the regional stability is causing more instability in a country that wants to stay out of it and see the end of the hostilities.
Jorkan, if you want, you may ask several questions.
Fuad, just regarding who is governing Iran, you already responded to my earlier question about this intricate structure of the Islamic Republic of Iran involving triangle and sort of Guardian Council, Assembly of Experts, and the Office of the Supreme Leader. We talked about IRGC. Of course, Basij plays an important role as well. The army, more than 100,000 troops. But regarding the personality of the former Supreme Leader's son, Mujtaba, I think his first name is Mujtaba Khamenei. There is a school of thought that he is more radical, he's a hardliner, supported by IRGC, good connection with the civilian elements of the government as well. And effectively, if he is allowed to govern the country, if he's not targeted by Israeli-US attacks, Islamic Republic of Iran, for all intents and purposes, emerge more resilient and in a more radical shape than in comparison with his previous version. What do you make of this debate?
I think, regardless of whoever comes into power afterwards, the death of the supreme leader, they come into a situation of like a scenario of doomsday for Iran. So, yes, there's been a lot of debate on some candidates that are more pragmatic per se, that could look at nuclear deals and all of this. But if you look at Iran is 90 million people. I said it recently that it's like the epicenter of Shia Islam. You see Shias in Iraq, Shias in Pakistan, they attack consulates. So it does have a big effect. How logical would it be for the new supreme leader, whoever it might be, whether it's his son or one of the previous leaders of Iran that comes to power, just like the supreme leader did? How logical would it be for them to say, okay, forgetting everything that's happened, let's open a new chapter and start the talks again? Because they just assassinated not only officials, but the supreme leader who's been there in power for decades, who's been not only the political leader, but also the religious leader of the country, as well as the Shia population in the wider Middle East. So them taking a step back to de-escalate the situation right now would not be rational in their point of view, because it would show a point of weakness. Right? So you can just come and decapitate our leadership and we'll bend to your will. But the added side that it would be his son, that the debate going on that it would be the supreme leader's son, would also add an element of vengeance to the election. So whichever position we look at it from, it's not looking good. As long as the attacks continue, that at least for the next few weeks, I feel like this.
As we speak to you, Fuad, of course, allow me to reiterate that we have to receive official account of what happened from both sides. I'm very much interested, and everybody, in what will be the Iranian explanation, because it seems to be a drone attack. It doesn't seem to be collateral damage on the basis of what we have seen. But of course, clarification is absolutely vital. We shouldn't fall into the sort of trap of speculating irresponsibly, which hasn't happened here, I'm glad to say. Fuad, Turkish-Azerbaijani interaction under the circumstances. Within the scope of more than probably 24 hours, NATO air defense systems intercepted Iranian missiles in Turkish airspace. Iranians deny it. They say that they have not targeted Turkish territory, but the reality, I think, is very obvious. And just a couple of minutes ago, literally 45 minutes ago, Nakhchivan Airport was targeted. That brings us to the Turkish-Azerbaijani dimension. What is the level of coordination between the two countries in terms of de-escalating and also forming a collective deterrence against any further spillover effect that may emanate from the unfolding situation?
In terms of the collective coordination between Turkey and Azerbaijan, we see that both countries always call for de-escalation, especially in conflicts like this happened last year, it's happening this year, well, it has happened this year. I think Turkey always takes a bigger role in terms of trying to host mediation efforts. So it happened just a few weeks ago before the conflict started, but which actually was the most decided by there was a ballistic missile sent to Turkey just a few days ago. So in terms of the conflict, it's clear that, like you said, it's really hard to speculate as to where this came from, where it happened. But, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs already gave a statement, called in the ambassador of Iran from Baku. So it's obvious that Iran is trying to increase the scope of this conflict, right? Increase the range. But Turkey and Azerbaijan, they can, with their past mediation efforts and negotiation efforts in the region, I think they could, actually successfully help in this process. It's just to what extent is Iran willing to do this? Because Turkey wanted to host mediation efforts between the US and Iran, specifically on the nuclear issue, but Iran pulled out and changed the venue. So it all depends on what the Iranian leadership is willing to do.
Fuad, do you believe that circumstances may require the activization of Article 5 NATO protection mechanism if Turkey happens to be the recipient of Iranian attacks? there was a clear position emanating from NATO that there's no need for that now. Basically, those missiles were intercepted. But if the situation goes beyond control and Iran is capable of unpredictable actions, as we have just seen regarding Nakhchivan Airport, do you believe such a scenario could be deemed as within the realm of possibility?
That's an interesting question. I think when we look at it from the NATO point of view, although they've said that they support their US allies with a few exceptions like Spain that went back and forth, they wouldn't necessarily would want to be dragged into a war, especially at this scale. But when we look at Turkey and the public statements, we saw President Erdogan give a really concrete stance that, he said that we're in touch with our NATO allies, we coordinate with them, and we're ready to do whatever is necessary to protect ourselves. So it was really a strong statement of saying that we have lines that you cannot cross. And I think in that sense, when usually we would expect Turkey to not be true line, we see that hardline position because there's obviously been an incurrence into their state borders. So it is possible, I think, to an extent, that Turkey does really push for it because it is the second biggest army in NATO. But logically, it wouldn't be good because, who would want to get so many countries additionally involved in active warfare?
Thank you.
What is the official stance of the Ministry of Defense of Azerbaijan on this situation?
I'm not sure if there was already a statement from the Ministry of Defense. I saw there was a statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about this. But with regards to Turkey cooperation, there's always been deep ties with them. So our ministries of defense have always coordinated security policies and regional security alliances. But I think when we look at the statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're at least for the short the policy of wait and see. So we demand an explanation from Iran, and hopefully it won't take too long.
But if the war extends further for a month or two, what are the economic implications for neighboring countries?
I think when we look at the intensity of the clashes right now, it seems unfortunately very likely that it will extend for a few weeks minimum. Just closing the Strait of Hormuz for 1 or 2 days had an increased effect on the price of oil. We know that China is a big buyer of Iranian oil, so Iran is really keeping that card to itself. So whatever it wants, it can shut the Strait of Hormuz, which some people project could push oil prices up to $120 per barrel worldwide. So I think they're just trying to see what tactics they can do, to what extent they can have an effect, and if they don't, they will try to, to destabilize the economic balance in the world, and they're probably going to be able to do it with the Strait of Hormuz specifically.
Just one more question. I mean, as we wait for official confirmation, of course, which is very important for us to be able to speak with a degree of authority, which we lack, and we are using this sort of very careful language for very obvious reasons. There's one particular possibility that just sprung to my mind is, we know that the United States have been arming certain Kurdish forces in the western Iran. How would you evaluate the possibility of this being a mistake by the Iranian side and the original sort of targets being those Kurdish forces? I mean, so far I've thought about two distinct possibilities: incompetence, and the second possibility, deliberate warning. And third possibility, mistake, but not due to sheer incompetence, but simply by virtue of military mistake. What do you make of that third possibility?
I think looking at it through that lens, there is quite high predictability in that sense, because why specifically Nakhchivan, right? We saw that in the other attacks in the Middle East, they targeted really industrialized residential areas. Not to say that Nakhchivan isn't like that, but when it was the capital of Azerbaijan, God forbid, they targeted the Nakhchivan International Airport, by purpose or by mistake. So it could be that some of these drones were purpose. These kinds of things do happen a lot, actually happens with missiles as well. when we look at the Iranian specifically explanation after Turkey that they didn't do it, maybe they're just going to say the same thing.
Just let me read the official stance of the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense of Azerbaijan strongly condemned the attacks carried out by the armed forces of Iran against civilian infrastructure on the territory of our country, despite the absence of any military necessity.
Yes, this is a position officially by the Minister of Defense of Azerbaijan. It's very interesting. It's basically makes it very clear that Nakhchivan Airport is not a military target. Airports could be military targets if you're at war. I mean, airport where adversary would be military, but not Nakhchivan Airport. As we understand, Azerbaijan and Iran have been trying to, at least formally, cultivate a friendly relations, in particular over the past few months, dealing with some of the problems of the past. So two things, I think, emanates from this particular statement. Nakhchivan Airport, civilian infrastructure, as we know, and number two, this is effectively against international humanitarian law without any military necessity. It's a very short statement by the Minister of Defense and a technical one, of course. What is your evaluation of its brief content, Fuad?
Yeah, I think, like you said, first of all, at least as from an analytical point of view, we have to wait and see until we have all the facts. We have the fact that there was an attack carried out. Was it by mistake? Did it happen on purpose? We don't know. So we have to kind of refer to the statements made by Iran. I mean, a few hours, hopefully there will be some sort of explanation. But when we look at the statement, it shows that, Azerbaijan is not going to take this easily and just say, this is just in the past, it just happened right now. So we really have to prop up our own defenses so that something like this doesn't happen, even if it was by accident, but also demand some sort of explanation as to why it's happening. This was not a military target. The US isn't based out of Azerbaijan. We weren't part of the conflict in any sense. So why target Azerbaijan? That's what we need right now.
But I want to ask you one more question. How Russia and China are trying to de-escalate the situation in the Middle East?
I think, first of all, whenever we talk about Russia, we have to understand that they're more preoccupied with the conflict in Ukraine. So their priority has always been Ukraine for the past few years. I think in the sense of China, we saw some sort of tacit support for Iran by saying that they support them morally, but not materially. So maybe this signifies that they don't want to support them in that sense, in terms of material support, which has been in line with actually Chinese foreign policy in the past few years. They have not been actively involved in any of the conflicts in the Middle East. Yes, they have provided some support to Iran in the past. There were some naval trainings in the Indian Ocean, but it's surprising to see that there's no hardline position from China, considering that a big portion of their oil, it does come from Iran, which is, I think, a lot of analysts, they expected China to take a more hardline position rather than just saying we support Iran morally and just leave it at that.
Political analyst Fuad Kerimli and Deputy Editor-in-Chief Orkan Amashov, thank you very much for talking to A News. You are watching Breaking News, and follow us for more updates.